And what they find when they look through these DNA sequences, they actually find some genes, certain discrete segments, are actually conserved. Okay, conserved means that if there's a particular gene sequence that has a certain function and it's really important for a cell, they'll find that that's conserved. Okay, so you can find a similar sequence of DNA in something very simple like a yeast. Some of the sequences, the DNA sequences in yeast, you actually find similar sequences or conserved sequences in more advanced, if you want to use the term evolutionarily advanced animals or organisms, even like in humans. And we find that there is this conservation of important DNA sequences that goes from, like I said, some from bacteria, but mostly if you're in a eukaryote, because we're all animals, eukaryotes, so yeast, some worms or zebrafish, they have these different models that they study, and they'll find that they'll use these models to actually study human diseases, like, for example, macular degeneration. Okay, that's an eye disease. But they don't study that in humans. They actually have something called zebrafish, and they study the human disease in these animal models because their DNA is very similar. Okay, not all of it, but these conserved regions that control these particular functions. So there is this continuity of DNA sequences that you can trace all the way back from humans to, like, if you want to think of worms or different sort of more primitive organisms. And now what does that suggest? That would suggest that there is some sort of a mechanism by which the DNA that's important is conserved or is evolved. Okay, so this whole term evolution is not really something that should be considered Christian or not. It's a process. Is that scientific evidence for this process of evolution? Well, yes, it is, because why would you expect to see this particular DNA sequence in an nematode, okay, or a very primitive one-cell eukaryotic yeast cell, and you would find that conserved in a higher multicellular eukaryote, or a lot of times something that's in algae. You see this. This is the whole basis for phylogenetic classifications. It's all based on DNA or ribosomal RNA sequences. Okay, so this whole, biological tree, and like going back to the common ancestor, okay, there is a lot of DNA support that sort of points to the fact that there is a relatedness between more advanced species and more primitive species.